Welcome to Tennessee Real Estate Insider. I'm your host, Allyson Spencer, top producing real estate agent here in East Tennessee and property manager. Today joining me is Derek Malcolm. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Derek has been in the law industry doing closings and title work for 20 years and 15 for title. So I'm so honored to have you on the show today just because you offer so much expertise. I can always count on you to be there when I'm in a bind. And there are times when I am, so.
Oh, it always happens. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for being such a great person to work with over the years.
Well, thank you. So I'm excited to have you today to talk about wire fraud and other scams related to the dark side of real estate. We're just going to jump right in.
Let's do it.
Okay, scams.
Yes.
What are some of the real estate scams that we need to be on guard about?
A couple of big ones that are becoming more prominent, more prevalent. The big one for the last few years has been wire fraud. Wire fraud, the last time I checked, was about a $400 million a month problem in this country. So it's significant, and it's easy to get burned on that. Wire fraud, we see seller impersonation fraud now. And that's especially the case with raw land. It's harder to do that with a house, but with land, it's easier to sell something out from under somebody, pretending to be somebody else. And that can come in different forms. A lot of times there's notary fraud involved in that. You have to have somebody to notarize, knowing that you can't actually verify that you're who you're supposed to be. And then POA fraud is becoming a problem. And that's unfortunately, it's sometimes children who their elderly parents are in a position where the kids are just ready to start getting rid of houses and stuff. Maybe the parents aren't. And so children will start abusing things like powers of attorney to try to go ahead and get an inheritance before their parents die. So that's becoming a problem as well. So those are the most common ones right now.
Yes, with wire fraud, how exactly does that work? Break it down for us.
So there's a couple of different things that happen, but one of the most common situations is somebody in the transaction, a buyer, a seller, it is often not an agent, a lender, or a title company, because we've known and we've learned through the years that our emails have to be protected.
Right.
Our emails have to have multi-factor authentication. We have to have encryption. And so it's typically a buyer or a seller's email will get compromised. And once a hacker starts seeing emails come through about a closing, well, they get information. They can see from hacking into a buyer's email that you're getting ready to buy this house and you're getting a loan with this mortgage company, and this is the title company that's closing it, and this is the real estate agent that you're using. Well, that person can then go online and search, well, let's learn about the title company, let's learn about the lender, let's learn about the real estate agent. And that hacker will create a fake email address, oftentimes pretending to be somebody at the lender's office, or pretending to be the realtor, or pretending to be the title company.
Right.
So they'll send the email to the buyer and say, hey, closing is coming up in a few days. You need to go ahead and wire your money to us. Here are the wiring instructions. Well, what happens is we know that there's sort of a process, a system, and a timeline to these things. Buyers don't know that. Buyers get nervous. They don't do closings every day. And so they think, oh my gosh, I've got to get my money to these people. And a lot of times those emails come with some sense of urgency. Unless you want the closing delayed, you need to wire this tomorrow.
Yes.
And so the buyers get nervous. And so they go and they don't verify, they don't call the title company, or worse, the hacked email will say, to verify these instructions, call it, well, it's a fake number. If the email is fake, the phone number they're giving you is fake. They're not going to give you a phone number to the actual title company office. They're going to give you a fake one to one of their colleagues, cohorts, who can confirm the fraudulent wiring instructions.
Right.
And buyers fall into that trap, and they get nervous because they think, well, if I don't do this, my closing's not going to go through. I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to lose the house. And it's a miracle if a wire can be clawed back. Most of the time, once you wire that money, it's gone.
Wow, it's so sad.
Very, very few instances it can be clawed back, but those are legitimate miracles. And once buyers realize what's happened, it's usually too late. And often that's why these emails will have people wire their money multiple days before the closing.
Right.
Not the day of or the day before, multiple days before the closing. So 3 or 4 or 5 days later, by the time the closing gets here, well, 5 days have passed and that wire's long gone.
Wow.
So money is gone.
Well, I know we're going to touch on tips
Mm-hmm.
to ensure the safety with wire here in just a minute. But before we touch on that, let's talk about the fraud when it comes to seller impersonation, how that happens, and what circumstances we're seeing in our region.
Absolutely. Most common with vacant land. With a house, it's complicated because there's typically somebody living in a house.
Right.
It can happen with a vacant house, but it's more common with raw land. Raw land is the actual legitimate seller is somewhere else, probably not driving by his or her property every day, probably not keeping up with something. And so I had this situation come up. A gentleman from Illinois emailed me and said that somebody had tried to sell his farmland in Johnson County 3 times
Oh my gosh.
in the last month. Well, he's in Illinois.
Wow.
He's not checking on the property.
Right.
And the forgers, the fraudsters know that this person isn't here, and so they impersonate the seller. They pretend to be them. Sometimes that is by creating a driver's license or ID purporting to be this person. In the AI age, it's easy to do that. We can create fake IDs and things like that, and so people will try to do that. Sometimes it's not through a fake ID. Sometimes it's through a notary fraud. Maybe the people trying to sell it know, I can't pretend to be this person, but my buddy down the street's a notary, so if I can get the title company to let me use my own notary, I'm good.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's typically a vacant property where the owner isn't nearby. And by the time the owner figures out that something has gone on, even if they figure that out within a couple of days of closing, usually the money's already gone by that point.
Right.
So.
People are so creative and smart.
And it's so frustrating because if we could put that intelligence to good use, think of what we could do. But they spend so much time. And again, it's a lucrative business for them. With the wire fraud, $400 million a month is extraordinary. I mean, it's such an astronomical amount of money.
Wow.
And for these people that do this, if they fail 999 out of 1,000 times, well, it only takes once.
Right.
If that one time you've made $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000, well, you'll repeat that all day long, because if you got a $500,000 payday, that's enormous.
Right.
And so it incentivizes them to continue to perpetrate those frauds, and it makes our job so much more difficult.
Absolutely. And then there is also the deed and quick claim fraud. So what do you see there?
That's sort of similar to the seller impersonation fraud. People will just quick claim property to somebody, or try to get it out of somebody's name. And again, you can forge a quick claim deed. And the thing with quick claim deeds is most of the time you're not doing a title search. Most people call and say, "Hey, I just want to." A quick claim deed is a lot of people misunderstand what that is. There's an idea that it means, well, you're not paying any money for the property. That's not really what a quick claim deed is. A quick claim deed just means I'm not warrantying my ownership of the property. Maybe I own it, maybe I don't. Maybe I have a partial ownership interest. Maybe I own something, but it's not everything shown on this plat here. But whatever I own, or if I own nothing, whatever it is, I'm giving it to you. That's what a quick claim deed is. Well, because there's no warranty of title, there's no title insurance being purchased as part of it, people don't do title searches.
Right.
And so somebody will just call an office and say, "I need a quick claim deed. Hey, here's a copy of the current deed. I just want to put this in my son's name." Well, okay. And so somebody prepares a quick claim deed, putting it in their son's name. Well, lo and behold, that's not the actual owner's son. That's not even the actual owner.
Right.
But they're telling us this is the owner. And of course, you ask before you notarize it, "Can I see your driver's license?" But maybe they don't even ask you to notarize it. It's just a quick claim deed. Nobody's issuing title insurance. Maybe they say, I actually live in Nebraska now. If you'll just email it to me, I'm going to have a local notary at my bank sign it, but I'm just going to put this in my son's name. So sometimes they're not even signed locally. So we don't even go through the identification verification processes. And they just purport to be the owner. hey, let's put this in my son's name. Well, that's not your son. That's your cohort. That's your
Wow.
conspirator in this crime. And they get it signed, notarized, recorded, and now there's a quitclaim deed out there saying that somebody else owns the property. And a lot of times at that point, they'll try to go back and if they want to resell it, they can try to resell it. And when the title company, as part of the resale, does the title search, well, there's a quitclaim deed of record showing that John Smith now owns it, and it might not be the John Smith that the people sort of purported to be, but hey, everything there's nothing here that would cause us to question that this was a fraudulent quitclaim deed. So let's go ahead and get this property sold and closed.
Wow. It's so important to have measures in place, to
absolutely.
have licensed professionals to work with so that these circumstances don't occur. Unfortunately, sometimes they do, but there are measures in place.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to wire fraud and avoiding that scheme, what are some measures that you at your firm take into place? And I'll mention a couple of things we do with real estate as well, but there are ways to protect buyers.
Absolutely. So what we do is everything we send goes through an encrypted system. And it's done that way because if somebody is trying to hack into an email, they're not going to be able to get the information that we're sending or that we're receiving from the buyers and sellers. So we always send everything through that system. We will not send wiring instructions via regular email. It's too easy to get hacked. So all of our wire instructions go through our encrypted system, and that protects the integrity of that. And then what we do with
I want to chime in with that too, and just say not all closing firms do that.
Correct.
And I've been in the industry for a few years now, and there has been some that do that through email, which is extremely nerve-wracking.
It is, and there's pressure from everywhere in every angle of the real estate business. Technology is taking over. The problem with technology is it solves a lot of problems, but it's very expensive. And there are closing agencies that don't want to invest that money for multiple reasons. Maybe they don't have it to invest. Or maybe they think if I don't invest this money in this technology, I can keep my closing fees down. And if I keep my closing fees down, I'll be able to get more business. That's dangerous. We're getting to a point, we spoke about AI a few minutes ago, we're getting to a point where technology really is dominating everything in the real estate industry, title and closing especially. And you just have to make the investments in the technology. If it prevents a disaster one time, it's paid for itself. Because if you don't have those systems in place, if you don't have that technology, and there is a wire fraud issue, everybody involved in that transaction is going to get sued. And so an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So yeah, I kind of cringe a little bit when I hear folks that that there aren't these encrypted systems, there aren't these platforms and portals. We just have to get there. Everybody has to be using those.
Absolutely.
There's a reason that every lender has those sort of encrypted portals, and there are reasons why title has to have those as well.
And I think too, buyers can confirm with their real estate agent. I know I encourage my buyers, if they are going to do a wire transfer, to sign a wire fraud disclosure, which just specifically gives them advice on how to do that the right way.
Absolutely.
To call the closing company, to call the bank, to make sure double check the numbers.
And it's important for them to verify with their agent. So what we do when we give our wiring instructions through this encrypted portal is we do not include the last numbers of the account number. We do that because we want that person to call our office and actually get those last two numbers.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Now, what helps is the agent can verify that. So our wiring instructions are going to have the phone number to call. Well, if your client asks, hey, does this look legit? You can look at that and know, yes, that's Derek's phone number. Now, when you look at wiring instructions, you're like, you know what, that doesn't look like Derek's number. And if there's ever a question about, is this the correct number? I know it sounds sort of simple, but the easiest thing to do is Google search. You know,
Yeah.
you can get on Google and search Malcolm Title, and
Right.
it pops up, and there's our phone number, and that can't be hacked. So verifying numbers and email addresses with the agent, with Google,
Yes.
is all of those are extra steps. And sometimes it's just if something doesn't look right and you're being pushed to do something, take a deep breath and step back and be like, okay, no, because that's a red flag. If you're getting emails from somebody purporting to be a lender or a title company telling you that if you don't do this today, your closing is going to get canceled and you're going to be in breach of contract, okay, that's a red flag. Somebody's
I would say
pushing.
it's the urgency that is the red flag.
Absolutely.
I've been notified of several scams, and it's typically urgent matters.
Yep.
Always check with the real estate agent to confirm that. And when it comes to deed fraud or trying to sell someone else's land, I know as a real estate agent, we always look up the deed before we take on a listing. That's if someone is impersonating or trying to sell someone else's property, hopefully that'll be the first thing that pops up. Unfortunately, there are agents out there who don't check the deed and realize that midway through that the seller isn't who they say they are.
Yep.
What are some other tips for homeowners to avoid being impersonated?
So one of the biggest things with impersonation fraud and deed fraud is at some point a notary has to notarize that deed for the conveyance to be completed. And you have to use a reputable title insurance underwriter approved E&O insured bonded notary company. Now, if you come to our office, of course, we have notaries on staff, and so you know that hey, this person is a legitimate notary. And when people come to our office, and even when people do remote or mail-away closings for us, we have a program where they have to send us a legible copy of their ID, and we scan the front and back of that through a software program that will help us identify, is this a legitimate government-issued ID or is this a fake ID? And so those things, those are the two huge things. Confirm the validity of the ID via something like IntelliCheck or something like that, and make sure that you know who the notary is. Again, you talk about urgency and what people will tell you in an email. If a seller is saying, I'm not using your notary, my neighbor is a notary, my colleague at work is a notary, I'm going to get this notarized on my own. No, we just can't do that. We have to use underwriter approved notaries that are insured and bonded, and we know who those people are. And those people are going to be able to vet. Most of the time, they're going to be able to vet that this isn't who this person says they are.
Right.
They also do what we do with the verified ID, the IntelliChecks, where they can take a picture of the ID to see if it's a fake ID or not. When people start telling you, I'm not doing it, I'm not paying for a mobile notary, I'll cancel the transaction, fair enough, cancel the transaction. Because when they start pushing like that, a lot of times there's a reason. Something that sort of dovetails into that is we have to be unified on the same team with this. What happens a lot is a buyer or a seller will get unhappy with a certain process or protocol. They don't want to pay $150 for a mobile notary, or they don't want to have to call this number and verify a wire and then do something else. And so they start to push a little bit. And what happens is some agents will sort of immediately take the side of their client and say, well, you know, I've been selling property for 20 years and I've never had to do this. This is ridiculous. We're just going to find another title company. Okay, well, you can, but you might find another title company that doesn't have the electronic portals, that doesn't have the secure wire information, that doesn't use IntelliCheck. And what's going to happen is you're going to get your client, you're going to make your client the victim of a scam.
Right.
And so one of the better ways to prevent all of these is when something comes up, we got to band together, and we've got to say to the client, hey, look, we know you're frustrated, but there's a reason that these are the processes and protocols now. And no, they weren't the processes 5 years ago, but 5 years ago, we didn't have this volume of seller impersonation fraud, and we didn't have this volume of wire fraud. Now we do.
I think that's a great point to make too, as to why it's so important to have a real estate agent representing in a purchase or a sale, because we are aware of these issues going on, whereas someone who isn't in this field every day may not know that, and being able to set them up for success. Another scam that I've seen is with investors. There's several different scams. It could be, an unclean title, not being able to know that there were liens put on the house, but also applicants for renters. As a property manager, I tell people all the time, do not apply for anything on Marketplace because it has become saturated with scammers who will say, okay, pay $50 for this application and give me your social security number, and they're going to just take that information. They have no intention. I get notified of listings I have that are put on for sale by owner home websites or on Marketplace for scams, and like, hey, is this for rent half the price? And I'm like, nope, it's not.
It is not.
Just hit alert,
delete, alert, notify,
don't do
report,
it.
something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So-
It's so easy for someone committing a fraud to go online, get pictures. I mean, they know the property. The property may be legitimately for rent on a legitimate website. The property may be for sale on a legitimate website. Well, there's information about the property, square footage and bedrooms and bathrooms and all of these things and all these photos. It's so easy for them to just, it takes 2 minutes to get that information and create a Facebook Marketplace ad.
Right.
And people get on there, and it's unfortunate because I think, especially the market's complicated right now.
Yeah.
Buying houses is complicated right now. Renting is complicated right now, and people see a good deal. And look, we've all been told our whole lives, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
But people see that good deal and they think, well, I've got like, this is what I need. I've got to call this person,
Right.
and if I have to pay a $50 application fee or a $100 application fee, if I can lock this up, this is exactly what I need. Again, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
And it's sad because some honest people are posting on, Marketplace or other avenues, and they are legit, but it's so convoluted with all of the scams out there. And so it's important to do your due diligence and to make sure that the right process is done so that people are not losing thousands of dollars.
Absolutely. I see that on my Facebook feed. I'll have people say like, why is my house for rent? And like, has anybody else seen this? And it's so easy. It's so easy for somebody to do that.
Well, thank you so much for joining today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Look forward to having you on another episode.
Absolutely.
And we will tune in next time.